What's up everyone, PC Tracks here, welcome to my video. I've been sent over a few articles and I've been seeing comments on both Reddit and Discord about a possibility that we'll be getting some sort of a sequel for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, whether it be Bloodstained Ritual of the Night 2 or if it's going to have some other title. Now, as of the 4th of this month, it was actually confirmed on Twitter and Reddit that a sequel to Bloodstained is currently in the very early stages of development. Now, while the first game was good, it definitely had its faults. I wanted to take this as an opportunity to voice out my points and opinions that I've had ever since I first started playing the game. Of course, it is entirely up to Artplay's choice of what they want to put into the game, but I can only hope that these points are going to help them inspire some ideas. With all of this being said, let's proceed to the top 5 things I want to see for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night 2. So starting off with number 1, using sprites instead of 3D models. Now, personally for me, I have a soft spot for sprites since most of my favorite games come from the late 80s to late 90s era. When I first heard about Bloodstained and checked out the Kickstarter page, I saw these concept images. At that point, I had the impression that the game was going to use hand-drawn sprites. I found that it was somewhat of a letdown when it was announced that the game was not going to use sprites and was going to use 3D models instead. The game's visuals are definitely not the game's strongest suit. They look rather outdated, sort of have that mobile game vibe, and the animations are rather jank. It's kind of funny that I say that because the game did end up ported over to iOS and Android. It's even funnier of the fact that the game tends to run better on those platforms compared to the Switch version. If Artplay is going to continue using 3D models, to which is more than likely they will, something that I would find neat is if they perhaps mimic ArcSys's 2D illusion style, similar to what they've been doing with the modern Guilty Gear and Grand Blue Fantasy fighting games, where they use 3D models to look like 2D sprites. Moving on to point number 2, no RNG-based key progression. During your exploration in the caverns, you'll come across D-Semas. D-Semas drop a key progression shard called Aquastream, which is required to navigate through the water below. The issue with this is that the Aquastream shard is not a guaranteed drop, which in my opinion is a design flaw. If it so happens that the player does not obtain the shard anytime soon, there is a pretty good chance that the player will be stuck wondering about figuring out of what to do next. What Artplay should have done is at least make the Aquastream drop a guaranteed 100% after the first D-Sema kill. Key progressions should not be tied down to any sort of RNG in my opinion. However, if Artplay still wants to continue this trend, let's have someone who knows a thing or two when it comes down to game dev to explain how this could possibly be done.
Yo, hey guys, this is Fatih. So about the issue with RNG, I'd say the only time RNG would be acceptable for progression is if it is consistent and kind of optional, if that makes sense. Now, you might be saying, how can RNG be consistent? Well, let me try to explain. Basically what I mean with consistent is if the factor outside of the RNG drop rate is somehow set. For example, if there is a node somewhere in the world that you can mine for materials, and one of those materials is required to progress the game, have those nodes be special, make them shine or have them be a different color. This will set those nodes apart from the other nodes in the game and make it more likely to draw the player's attention to them. Or another example is if an enemy has a drop that you would need from it, make the enemy be like an elite or a mini-boss. Give the player an incentive to take on the challenge and reward them accordingly. What if something like that is going to be the case? Definitely do not make it a one-off thing. That would just confuse the player. If it is a new mechanic and it only happens in the game once, the player could very well just skip it altogether, because in their mind it is not something that is special. That is what I mean with being consistent. Not the RNG factor itself, but the circumstances around it. That being said, if true progression is locked behind RNG elements, I think that can leave a bad taste or confuse the player. If there is an RNG element for progression, I'd highly suggest it to be for an area that is completely optional. So maybe just to unlock a shortcut or to gain access to a battle arena. Also, hints should always be given. Have an NPC say something along the lines of, "We've heard legends that those elite monsters unlock special pathways." Whatever it is, the player should never just stumble upon it. And with that, this is Fatih signing out. Back to you, PC Tracks.
Going on to number 3, earlier synergetic movement options for Mariam. From the beginning of the game, the player is able to perform a technique called backdash cancelling or BDC. Interestingly, since the beta, there is some funky techniques that you can perform with the Kung Fu shoes. You could use these techniques up until you encounter Andril Fuss in Leave It at Ex Machina to obtain the double jump shard, which of course enables you to double jump and dive kick. However, after that, there is nothing else that really fills in the void up until you obtain Invert, which does connect quite nicely with Merrim's movement options, but really just flips the environment back and forth and upside down. Reflector Ray acts more like a positional shard that is restricted only to be used on the ground and has a certain amount of startup time before it could be used. High Jump is an awesome movement option that unfortunately is a late craftable item. Both Accelerator and Dimension Shift are endgame shards that are simply intended for backtracking for exploring the rest of the castle. Let me show you an example on how the legendary Castlevania Symphony of the Night creates a great formula that connects movement options earlier on in the game. So I've actually decided to make this point into its own separate video, so if you are interested in checking it out, you can either click on the featured link at this current timestamp, or you can click on the video description below and you should find the link to the video. Number 4, a CVHD-style co-op mode. Now, we are not 100% sure if this style of co-op is still set to be released for Bloodstained 1, but considering that we had Chaos mode and Versus mode that was mentioned in the last revealed roadmap, it might be safe to say that a CVHD-style co-op probably will not happen for the game. Many fans, including myself, initially thought that the co-op included in Bloodstained 1 was going to be some sort of mode that replicates playing the original single-player mode, but just with 2 or more people. Maybe we could see this happen in the sequel. And for the last point, we got number 5, both Roguelike and Randomizer mode. Roguelike mode was a planned mode as per the stretch goal from the Kickstarter. Unfortunately, the mode never saw the light of day since it was replaced with the Randomizer mode. As expected, many fans were disappointed about this. The Randomizer is actually pretty decent, minus the fact that seeds could be uncompletable, with a variety of customization options you can do with a seed. Hopefully, Artplate could make up for this change by including Roguelike mode and maybe even the Randomizer in the sequel. And that sums up my 5 points of what I would like to see for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night 2. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or if you would like to pitch in on which points you would like to see for the upcoming Bloodstained sequel, feel free to mention them in the comments below. I would also like to give a special shout out to Fatigue for helping me out to create this video. If you want to check out his content, I will post his channel and links in the description below. As always, if you enjoy my content, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to my channel. If you would like to catch me on stream, you could also follow me on twitch.tv/PCTracks. Until next time everyone, peace.